Josh won't be here tonight. He's having car trouble, so. And what's his wife's name? Ashton has got a vehicle at your camp, so he sent a message to me and you. So, wasn't here on last week. But I heard it went well. Hadn't had a chance to listen to it yet. Given that the internet in Africa was kind of sketchy a little bit. So, but I will be listening to it so that I can at least catch back up. Greg did kind of tell me that it went well and that a lot of participation, so that was truly exciting. So today we're picking up with the parable of talents. It's Matthew 25:14-18. You got it, Chip?
Yeah.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. I need wood.
Okay, so it says, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. He then left on his trip. The servant who received 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master.
Amen. So it says list 5 facts of the story in bullet point fashion below. So anybody want to start us off?
Short statement.
He gave what he gave to them was according to their ability. How much he gave them?
Okay.
Okay, I'll do it. I put kingdom of heaven, like a traveling man, 3 given talents. Man gains double, and then man with 2 gains double, and then hides the talent.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My first one.
It's fine. It's good.
Okay, so mine was they were all given the silver, and they were all entrusted with them and responsible, and what they did with it. Well, I wrote what did they do with it, and then they're responsible for what they did with the to try and grow the starting product, and in the end the 2 were rewarded, and the other one was I've been trying to figure out this word the whole day. Not punished, or you said it earlier, but when we were talking, but
What are we talking about? Talking about accountability or?
another word for punished.
Discipline, damage.
You said it. It was yeah, I'll come back. It's-
Anybody else?
We noted that he called his own servants, so just kind of lets us know that he knows these guys pretty well. And so that kind of leads into what you were saying about how he gave them according to, but the way he knows, what they're gonna, their talent's gonna be is because he already knows them. They're his servants. Well, that's it.
We also said that the guy that got 1 talent hid his share in the earth. So he digged it and hid it here on the earth, kind of like laying up your treasures here on earth.
Please, go ahead.
No, sir. I like to hear you speak. It's been a while.
Huh?
I like to hear you speak. It's been a while.
I said that he went on a journey. He entrusted his servants. He gave away the things that he had, and each did something different with what they were given. Anybody else? Amen. So it says, verse 15 states that the man gave to each accordingly to his ability. Explain what you think this phrase means.
I think I read it. I think it means like God gives each person exactly what He knows that they can handle. You know, sometimes like in this case, it's talents. It's talking about like money, whatever. But like a lot of times, people will be like, "Man, if I had this or had that," well, a lot of times we think that we need something, but in reality, God knows, like, well, if I gave you this, I mean, He knows, like, how responsible we're going to be, how we're going to be with whatever it is that He gives us. So, like I said, given to their own, each his own ability is like, God knows exactly what He's giving each person. And when He gives it, He knows that even like that one, even if it's just that one talent, that means that He supplied at least everybody with at least one talent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I think to just piggyback on what he's saying, it's just like, not only does God, like, I think about, I just thought of this, but I think about, like he said, God gives you according to, like each of us has like some gift or ability, but then also at the same time, I think about people that like pray for things that they themselves probably could not manage. Like, oh God, I wish I could like have a new house. But you probably, if He's like supplied you with that house, you probably wouldn't do right by like you mess something up, you find a way to. That's why I think that a lot of times like when we pray things that aren't in accordance to His will. So why didn't like this come to pass, or why didn't this happen? Well, because like you're not. It's like either you weren't in tune with Him, or like at this particular time, like you're not prepared. Like He wasn't prepared to have 2 bags of the gold handed to Him, the silver handed to Him. The other guy was, and rightfully so, because you see what each did with what they were given. So had you given them 2 bags, maybe you would have got 2 more, and maybe you would have just hit all of them. You don't know what He would have done, but I think that's just why God is who He is, and why He answers some of our prayers, and then also show us that this isn't really what you need right now, even though we think that's what we need. And whatever certain time in our life, or I think a lot of times we pray for, whether we acknowledge it or not, we'll pray for like what we want, not things that are necessarily like be like either not even physically, but like spiritually beneficial for us, but like even like it may not necessarily be good for us, even just looking at it in like the flesh per se. You know what I'm saying? So.
Good stuff. Anybody else?
I put also a lot of the same stuff that you already said, but also that God knows, obviously He knows your heart and what you're capable of, but also He looks at your past performances. And so like, I don't know what I was alluding to earlier about His servants, He knows them. And so He's seen what they do before, and so then He can kind of say like, I don't think you're, based on the way I've seen what you're doing before, I don't think you're ready for that, but here's this one, and I want you to see what you can do with this too, or this one, or whatever. So I think a lot of times, the more, and it says in the end, you've been faithful with little, I'll give you much next time. So it's kind of like you do good with the little, and then each time you're going to get a little more. He just kind of it's like, I mean, I know we do a lot of sports references because most of us all like to work out and stuff, but it's like, you don't just go to the gym day one and you're trying to put up 3 bills or something, you know? It's like your trainer comes in and he's like, hey, I think we should start with this. Okay, I think you can handle that. And then you're proving yourself and he's like, okay, why don't we step up and we add this and then we'll do this. And then, so he's setting you up for success by not, you know, everybody wants to set the world record, but you're going to get hurt. You need to, let's train this way. Let's start with this. Let's ramp it up.
Just a little bit off. Don't you think it's funny like how a lot of times people that like instead of the talent, like the, whatever talent is that God's given, whether it's like that 1 or 2, you know, a lot of times if it's that 1, you may not even be focused on that 1, but you look at the other person that has like 2, 3, 4, like man, like you want more, but you haven't even. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times I haven't even, like you said, like dealt with, like, okay, deal with this 1. You know, you're looking at what he's, I gave him 3, 4, 5. You know, but that's not for you right now. But you know, it just kind of, I just think that I would look at sometimes how we do with some people. You know?
This might be like off the wall, but we had something like this come up just recently this week. We're praying at our church for like a shuttle bus so we can like start picking people up and have a bus route and stuff, you know. And I've been talking to my dad and like we've both been looking and trying to find something that our church can afford and praying and stuff. And then he kind of mentioned something the other day and I was like, wow, that's pretty good. He's like, we all got cars. How many of us are going to pick people up in our cars? God gave you a car. If you're not picking up 3 people, then don't worry about it. You won't have a shuttle bus to pick up 19. You're not picking up 3 in your car, then, you know, and I was like, oh, that's a pretty good deal. You know, that kind of reminded me of the story when I was reading this was like, he said it to me that way. And I was like, huh? Dad said that about
I already getting a shuttle vehicle.
Yeah. It was like, you know, there's however many people in the church and y'all all came in a car with empty seats in it. So, no complaining about not having it. It kind of made me think of like where the one with 1. Yes.
Brett, say something?
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, kind of following, you talking about the prior history, the fact that he knew his servants. And you've been watching your servants, so these have been servants for, you know, not just some he picked up this week. He's had these servants, so.
Right.
And so I put that the men were given as much as a traveler knew they could handle based on what he knew of their prior work history. So he's been, and that's like how the Lord is. He already knows us. I found, let's see. Hebrews 4:12 says something about for the word of God is quick and powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the dividing asunder of souls and spirit and of the joint and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. So he already knows the hearts of his servants as to what they're going to do with it, and how God is. He doesn't have any respect or time. He already knows ahead of time what you're going to do with these 2 that he's going to give. So he already knew what was going to be the end at the beginning. And then I found in Philippians 2:12 where it says, wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. See, he knows what they're going to do while he's there. He already knows how they work, but he's going to go on a trip, and he wants them to work the same way in his absence, and to work it out. And then in Romans 12:1, I skipped 2, but M3, where it alludes to that fact that the Lord has given us all. He's dealt every man a measure of faith, so he's dealing them this measure, whether it's 5, 10, 2, 1, whatever, and it's up to the individual to, like you said, use what God gave you, use it or lose it. In the case of the one he didn't do anything with it. And so, he didn't even get to have the one, so, but that's why.
Good stuff. Anybody else?
I feel like, as we're talking about how like the Lord knows exactly how, like, what he's giving you, he knows exactly how to respond. I sometimes think of it in a way that he's not looking to see what your response is because he knows what it is. He's sometimes trying to show you what your response will be, show you how like, what that will put yourself. Because it's like, when you ask the Lord sometimes for something, sometimes like he lets you have it, and then at the end you're like, wow, I didn't do as well as I thought I would. It's like he's letting you test yourself and seeing just how much like it's not for him, but it's for you.
Anybody else? Well, I mean, for me, I found it interesting that he goes back to talents because a couple of chapters before that, he's talking about the unforgiven servant, where the king goes before him, and it says of the servant that he owes him 10,000 talents. And it's in chapter 18, verse 23. But I mean, and so I went to look to see what talent meant, to what the scripture's saying. And it's the highest denomination that you can get. So it's higher than the narrowly or whatever it is, the Roman money. So I mean, this is the highest amount that is costed to an individual. So, it's the equivalency, I guess, of whatever our highest dollar bill is in America. So, I mean, and so here he owes 10,000 talents to this king. And of course, he asks the king to have pity on him. And of course, the king has pity on him and forgives him. And then he goes out right after that, and there's a dude that owes him some denarii, and yet he don't forgive him. So to me, when I thought about the talents and it being the highest amount of equivalency, well, I mean, when it comes to God, anything from God is higher than anything we can get from the world. And so, whatever talents he gives us, I mean, first off, in order when we get those talents, we have to remain humble. So he may not give us more talents because of our humility, not being able to handle, I just healed this dude, so now, look what I did. You know what I'm saying? So that's like, well, I'm shutting it off because no, you didn't do it. I'm the one that did it. I'm the one that gave you the talent to do it with to begin with. So, so I looked at it in that respect, that as a talent being the greatest spiritual gift that we could receive from God, no matter what it is, it's greater than anything that anybody in this room could give me. And so, I mean, to have the ability, we know the different gifts of the Spirit. So, I mean, and again, I think me and you have talked about it before, Greg. I mean, because to me, I think we all have the opportunity to be able to exercise all the gifts, but it has to be given to God for us to be able to do that. But I don't think that he'll give us more gifts if it's going to puff us up. It's going to make us prideful. Because the result, I mean, as we see, each one can handle whatever, and the one guy goes and buries it because he turns around, you're mean, you're tough, and so sometimes I think we squander that one gift away because one, either we're afraid, two, we're either ashamed, or three, we just don't know how to do it because we don't learn how to use the gift that he gave us. I thought it was interesting that 2 chapters before that, 3 chapters or 4, whatever, I mean, he's talking about talents and it being a part of forgiveness. So, I mean, again, the talent being the highest thing, equivalency that you can get. So, anybody else? Amen. It says, what principle is being taught so far in the parable? I'll kind of highlight on some of it going around, but did anybody have anything specific that the Lord put on your heart for that?
I'll say trust the process, I guess. Because, if I get saved, my first step shouldn't be opening a mega church. It should be, focus on the one, try to, change as many lives as possibly can. And within, the more you start walking into Christ, I'm sure he'll give you more and more for more people to change. And I guess just trust the process.
I just feel like making the most of whatever talent is that God gives you, whether it's 1 or 2, whatever, making the most of that, whatever it is. Not focusing on getting more.
Yeah.
Because
So I like that, because if y'all combine y'all's answer, trusting the process is trusting that one talent that God, when the time comes, he'll give you more. Kind of like he was talking about, be faithful over this, I'll make you ruler over this. So I think if you combine those, it's a pretty spectacular answer. Anybody else?
It might not be the main principle, but for whatever reason, at this time when I was reading and answering the questions, I put basically, that for the main principle, but then I also noted that everything is God's to begin with. So like if you notice that everything the servants had, the servants don't own anything. It's the master's talents that he lets you hold on to for a minute, manage them and be a steward of them. And so I just wrote down that servants don't own anything. They take care of the master's things. He lets us hold his things to be taken care of while he's not here, till he returns.
Anybody else?
I put, we have all been given a measure of faith in order to perform our reasonable service, which like in Romans 3, it talks about, present your body a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God. That's our reasonable service, and he's looking for us to do that. And once again, in that scripture in verse 3, it's talking about how it was according to, as God hath dealt to every man, it was according to God. And then 2 Timothy 1:9 says something about who hath saved us and called us with an holy calling, not according to our works, but according to his own purpose and grace. And it's like, it's all about him. Like you say, it's his stuff. And so he's measuring it out to us and wanting us to do the right thing with what he's given us. Like I said, we're just managers.
Good stuff, good stuff. Anybody else?
I also thought, not just that he's giving us money, but maybe he gave us, Jesus. And so we're given the good news, or we're saved. We don't want to hide our Bible, at home. Or so like they doubled their goods. So like we should go out and share and trade information. I don't know how to compare that, but thinking of it as like God's given us this amazing gift, which was his son, and then we should be sharing God's gift to us, to others, so that other people can be blessed.
So kind of like what you were saying, the talent isn't just the money, it's the greatest denomination, which what is our greatest?
Yeah, which, and that's what kind of piggybacking off of you, that's kind of what, for me, is that God gives us things not to keep to ourselves. It is for us to go out and share. So if he gives me something, even if it's a knowledge of word or a word of knowledge, even if it's, something as simple as, hey man, just, Jesus told me to tell you that he loves you. That's not keeping that talent to yourself. So and going back to what he was saying, trusting the process. That's me investing in you, the talent that God gave me. So the result is that you produce talent. Like Nathan just did. So we get a little praise and worship.
So would you say we should, good point. Would you say we shouldn't be spiritual hoarders?
No.
Okay. You know what I mean? Like you say, you keep it. Say you keep it to yourself. Like you're hoarding it for I'm just yeah.
Which to me goes back to the one that buried it. He's hoarding it. He's keeping it to himself. He's not trying to invest it. And the only way you can invest is by putting it into something.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So, and when you invest, here's the thing, don't expect anything in return when you invest, but expect something from the individual, because God is the one that signifies that talent for that individual. You know what I'm saying? So, again, Deontay is saying, trust the process. So if I'm going to share the gospel, it may not be for me to save you that day through what the Lord puts on my heart, but it plants a seed. The greatest testimony for me on last week was Jason, and him talking about the individuals that were in his life that got him to where he is now. And so, 33 years later, from arguing about abortion being him to now seeing him pray with an 8-year-old Zambian child, I mean, I was blown away, you know. But I couldn't make that happen 33 years ago. It took that amount of time for God to soften Jason's heart, and Jason probably cried more than I did this last week. So, but I mean, it's not for us to keep to ourselves. We always talk about fruit. Fruit produces not for itself, but for others to be able to eat. So, anybody else?
It says that in this parable that the Lord entrusts us with these abilities, and I think that with those abilities, it comes an amount of like trust that we have to give back to Him, because like you were saying, the Lord doesn't just give to give; He always has a purpose for it to be used for something else. So, like giving Him that trust that He'll have provision and a will over it, and being able to trust Him that like even though He's giving you all of these things, that He'll still be over and not just letting you walk out the door and like, oh, just like come back whenever, but He's like walking with you and like helping you along the way.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because I mean, you may not even see the results of the investment. You know, I mean, just talking about Abraham. You know, told him that look up in the sky, as many stars as in the sky. That's your people. I mean, he never got to see that come to pass. But I mean, that was a promise from God. So just like you're saying, I mean, it's trust in Him that whatever happens is in the end going to glorify His name. Yes, sir.
When we talked about investing, I kind of thought about like if you think about investing.
Is this a sales pitch?
No,
No,
the person that doesn't invest in anything is the person that's like, usually people that don't invest, people that are kind of conservative, they're afraid, they don't want to take a chance. And so kind of think of like the people that take a chance, they have faith, they don't know what's going to happen, but they're going to take a chance, they're going to take that step, and they have faith. So I kind of think about the same way. They had faith that they could grow their talents. And so that's kind of like how I related it.
I kind of see when you talked about like the gospel, and it's the seed, the word, it's the good news. And as we plant seeds of the good news gospel to people, we don't know which are going to take root, which ones are, but in doing the investing, the Lord gives the increase to whatever it is, and so that's how it multiplies. And there's where the increase comes in. It's not even about us still, but our job is to keep planting the seed, and move on. Somebody else is gonna water, keep moving, and in doing so, we're all doing what we're supposed to be doing as the hands and all the body parts of Christ, doing each little thing that they're supposed to do. And it does what it's intended to do. The Lord's purpose is fulfilled. His name is glorified, and other people are brought into the kingdom of heaven, which makes it grow.
Right. Well, that's what. So I'm just process, purpose, and passion. If we have those three in everything that we do, you know what I'm saying? We trust the process that God's going to be what He's about. There is a purpose behind it, and we have to have a passion. To the point. Again, going back to Zambia, to see 8, 9, and 10-year-olds to be unashamed of the gospel in their community and just walk up to a complete stranger and start sharing the gospel was so convicting to me, because I'm like, what's my excuse? What's my excuse? This kid has nothing. And so, 7 of the 9 kids that talked about the greatest part of camp was hearing the word of God. I'm talking 7 to 13, 8 to 13 year olds. I'm talking grown adults. And their favorite part of this camp, when we played, we fed them, was, these guys don't get to eat all the time. Their favorite thing was the word of God. There is that passion.
You want to go to?
Right?
Leave.
Anybody else? Matthew 25, 19 through 23. Somebody want to read that?
After a long time, the master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used his money. The servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, "Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more. The master was full of praise. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling the small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. The servant who had received the 2 bags of silver came forward and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I've earned more. The master said, well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Did I read that right?
Oh, you got it, 23, yeah.
Okay.
So it says, verse 19 states that the master returned and settled accounts with them. What is the spiritual principle being illustrated in this verse? Huh?
The second country.
Talk about that. One. Smack in the face with that one. Anybody else?
I kind of pulled some commentary when Trey was talking about it. He was basically saying that we'll be held accountable for what we have done with time, abilities, money, and authority that God has given us. So authority means like, you know, like when I think of authority, I think of like positions that God places people in to be able to make impact or make change. You know, whether you're a manager or supervisor at work, or whether you're like a politician. I mean, I just think of positions of authority, or even honestly as a parent. You know, like okay,
Well, you guys are friends.
like what have you done with
It never ends, in my opinion.
Yeah, but we're held accountable for that. That's
Anybody else?
I put, when the Lord returns, the second coming, and he will take back what is his, but moreover, we will answer for what we did with it while he was gone. And just kind of at this point, I was obviously thinking the same thing that Ashley thought a while back, so she's way ahead of me, but it's not just the money, it's all the blessings and the spiritual talents that God gives us, the gifts that he gives us. So the word, you know, the gospel, our children, what did you do with them while you were managing these blessings that you know you were steward of these things? What did you do with them? So you know, our homes, our positions, our jobs, our children, our families. So, and when he comes back, and when we stand at that judgment, he's going to ask us what'd you do with all this stuff? And so.
Anybody else?
I feel like that a lot of people, when it comes to like return and settled accounts with them, it's like, say you're given this credit card and you're doing like what you want with it. You're not really thinking about when like the bill comes in and when you're coming in, like wanting to sit down and talk about how you handled your financial situation. And then when you don't have like, you know, the money to pay back, that's when you consequences happen. And I just feel like a lot of people are so like, I guess okay with thinking of like, oh yeah, he'll return, but it's like they're not thinking that he's gonna sit down and settle that cost and like be like, this is what I gave you, now you kind of have to like give that back, or like show me what you did with it. And this is what I expected and you didn't need that. So I feel like that's like something people like don't think about, is that settling the accounts.
Anybody else? Amen. All excellent points. Says, what do you find significant about both servants receiving the same response from the master, even though they returned to him different amounts of money?
Not judging us based off anybody else's scale. You're not comparing what person A did to what person B did. It's comparing what person A did to the best of what. Like, did you maximize what you can do, not what you can do compared to anybody else?
It's like, it's like, say if you were to compare by like, I guess people that came to Christ, like Billy Graham to like anybody else pretty much, or like in this room, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like as far as people that you've led,
Pretty
or,
close.
you know what I mean? It's just like, it's not really like, it's all for the kingdom. So like, even one heaven rejoices. So, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. Think about like heaven rejoicing is like, like soccer's going on right now. Like, if there's one person on the field and they scored a goal and then like no goalie, but they scored a goal, but everybody went crazy. Like, it's kind of like how, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I feel like it can also be an account of like the situation that they were put in. So I guess like for an example, saying like having 2 Girl Scouts and being like, let's see who can raise the most money. But one lives in like a rich gated community, and the other lives in like it's hard to say that this one, like the one that lives in our class, is gonna make just as much, but with what she had, she worked the best that she could, and in comparison, like it's the same because they worked just as hard. It's just the amount was different, you know.
To add to what she's saying, the master was looking at the faithfulness. No, I didn't. He was looking at the faithfulness, not like I said, not how much. He was like, "Are you going to be faithful at whatever it is that I give you? I'm going to be faithful with it."
Let me say this, since you took mine. While the Lord is no
He
respect.
looked at your Bible.
He
and
looked at
he was like, I didn't know.
He's no respecter of person, so it's like there's no the big guy, little guy, you know, as in measure of stature or whatever. But he rewarded their diligence and their faithfulness to do something with what he entrusted them. Not that, you know, they didn't do anything like the one who hid it. You know, he was rewarding their diligence and the fact that they're, you know, getting after it and putting in the effort, so, and their faithfulness.
I was just thinking right now, I didn't write this in my notes, but I was just thinking right now about
You can't say that if you didn't write it. I just can't go ahead.
on Sunday when you were talking about like different sports figures and stuff and what we value versus the way you were saying a scriptural value of it, you know, of like God's not necessarily worried about like who has the most points or the most, but did everyone contribute? Like if you're contributed to your team getting to their goal, then it doesn't matter. It's not about like, you know what I mean? If you, this guy, it may not be your role to score the points. You may just be getting assists, and it's not necessarily about, you know, your stats and stuff, but if you're contributing towards the whole goal. And so like this guy contributed in the way that he could with his situation, which was you got 2, the best he can, you know, he contributed towards the common goal. And so like what you were saying, kind of all together, like if you help lead one person to Christ, then you're contributing or you're at least, if you're trying to spread the word, or, you know, you're doing something for the cause of Christ and you're contributing to it. And if you're working to the best of your abilities, he's valuing your faithfulness, not necessarily your stats or your, you know.
That's really good. I think sometimes like you will see like if you go to like middle school, high school games, you watching kids play sports, you know, and I know somebody talked to him about it. You know, he did a good job of it. Like, because there's been times where you think like, you know, a lot of times, especially the parents thing, we should be playing more, should be doing this more. But if you see your kid like, oh, you've been trading this year, you know, teammate make a mistake, you may not be in the game, just like when you go and say something encouraging, or you may see something from you, but like, so you're part of the team. So even though you're not out there on the court or on the field, it's like you're part of the team. So, you know, it's easy to sit down, like, you know, you can pout or do all the other stuff, just, you know, but it's like, well, you know, if you're part of the team, because those things have an effect. Being negative and on the team has just as big an impact as being on the team and being positive. You know?
Well, if you're playing, you know, any sport that requires more than 5 people, I mean, you know, that person that's in practice that doesn't get to play at all in the game is just as important, because who are they going to go against? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, and to me, just like you say, I mean, when a team wins a championship, just because you sat on the bench, but you were at every single practice, you did all the things necessary, to make that person across from you better, you still get a ring.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and that's the reason why, no matter what that is, I think that we should never come to the point where we become jealous of one another because the other person happens to sing better than me. That's, praise God. You know what I'm saying? Because I think about Philippians 4, 12, but actually it's 11. It says, now that I speak in respect of one, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, there am I content. So if I only have 2 talents, man, I'm content in that. I'm not, but if God wants me to get more, I'm content with that. So we've got to get to that point where, just like you're saying, I'm so content in it that I don't care. I just want God to get glorified. I want people to know about the best thing that's ever happened in my life. You know what I'm saying? I tell them about a bunch of nonsense, but sometimes I'm hesitant about telling them the best thing that happened to my life. There's no greater talent than Jesus Christ in my heart. And so I should want to share that at all costs in it. There was a guy that said the other day, you have to hate somebody a lot not to tell them about Jesus Christ. I was just like, man. He said, you must hate them a lot because you're willing to not share Jesus Christ with them because you'd rather go to hell than know the truth. And I was just like, that was tough. That's almost as bad as somebody saying a lot of good people are going to hell. So anybody else?
What question?
We are on,
Yep.
yeah, right here, right?
Usual.
What is the spiritual principle being illustrated in this verse?
Wait, no.
No, what do you find significant about both servants receiving the same response from the master? The one that had 5 talents and the one that had 2 talents. The Lord or the master still said to them, well done, thy good and faithful servant.
Well, I think he wasn't really looking at how many they had, but the fact that them 2 came back not the same.
Yeah, something.
That I think the person got 1 and the person get back had the exact same, but the other 2, it doesn't matter how many they had, it doesn't matter what they did, they came back with more. Came back not the same as the way he was.
I get spiritual since I've been gone. I need to practice it. It's a good point. Anybody else?
Yeah. I haven't thought about it like that. Just like those 2 people agree. Or the person stays stagnant, and if you stay stagnant, you're moving backwards.
Saying, man, I'm impressing me tonight. The Lord, praise the Lord.
I have one where you're talking about, I think it was significant about both receiving the same, regardless of the different amounts of money that they have, but they receive the same reward. I think about the greatest whatever of all time, Jordan, Bron, whatever, Kobe, all those guys, were great, but it wasn't the box score didn't say the other team and Kobe or the other team and LeBron. It was the Cavaliers. It was you know what I'm saying, the Bulls. It was the team. And then on the other hand, if you were to take something that seemed like that individual person wanted themselves or someone else had to invest in that individual, it still wasn't even just them. Someone else invested in some way, shape, or form, played their role in that person's success, which ultimately maybe led to that person's success, but it's it's a thing. But I was thinking about that when I mentioned that earlier.
I kind of think on the flip side, I kind of think how sin, all sin is just sin. I kind of think about that, except on the flip side of that. So it's it doesn't matter what kind of sin you do. It's all leveled the same. He looks down. It's like a bar, except he looks down. So it's all just a box.
Right.
And I think the same way of the flip side is, yes, I'm saving all these people's lives and doing my own. But that's what you're supposed to do. So it doesn't matter if I save 2,000 lives. me saving one life is the same as saving 3,000 lives to Christ.
Otherwise, your works is not what got you in.
Reasonable service.
As long as you're diligent about, as long as you're doing the process, the purpose, and the passion. Whatever that looks like.
Yeah, like you said too, like I think you always say, somebody led Billy Graham to Christ.
Yeah.
So that one
He
person
didn't even
had
know.
not shared the gospel with him, and Billy Graham is responsible for leading many of people to Christ. So, somebody okay, well, it's just doing their favor, whatever it is that he gave you to be faithful with.
And I think they said, after it was all said and done, when the kids went out on Thursday, anywhere from 8 to 14, I think was the oldest one. And out of the groups, 200 people came to know the Lord in Lusaka's that day because of kids, not because of adults, but because of kids. So I think in that same respect, God is no respecter of age either.
Yeah.
He just wants willing vessels to be used in whatever capacity he sees fit. We're going down to the next one. We're going to skip that one. If we have time, we'll come back up to it. It says, if you were one of the first two servants, which part of the master's response in verse 21 and 23 would bring you the most pleasure and why? And somebody wants to read that again.
His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness."
Come and share your master's happiness. I think the parable for that one is come and live in my kingdom.
Mine was well done, good and faithful servant, because you always like when someone. For me, I always like when someone tells me that I do a good job, that I did a good job on something.
They getting that falsetto. I wrote down the part about the faithful servant because I wrote this just looked at the definition of faithfulness like loyal, devoted, steadfast, committed, and I thought about that's an attribute that Christ had from beginning to end, and how we're being faithful. That's like an attribute that people can see in us. So for me, it's just to being faithful, and then also like God says, without faith, there's a lot of hindrance on being faithful.
I put, while I would be equally happy to hear the well done part, the part that gave me the most pleasure is the part to hear him say, enter into the Lord, because there's a bunch that say, Lord, Lord, and he's like, depart from me. And you want to hear him say, come on in, like Deontay said, I want to be on the inside of the gate, not go to the lake, but that's because it's like, it says the joy of the Lord to me is just like his way of welcoming his children or his servants or his sheep, depending on what, the parable in the stories were, into heaven, which is his rest, or if we go back to the virgins, it's into the wedding feast. I want them to say, come on in.
I would say another part would be, I would put you in charge of many things. Would you put someone in charge of something that you don't trust? And to think that my master, Jesus Christ, he trusts me enough to put me in charge of something.
Mine would be well done, because out of all the things that I've done to turn myself away from him, still, through that, inadvertently using his word and stuff, he still thinks I've done. I've still gotten that accomplishment.
So the same part about the faithful part, to think how many times that I thought that I wasn't being faithful to God, and I turned my back on him, and think that he still believes that I'm faithful. I think that would be that gets me a lot.
Rewarding.
I have to piggyback off of what Deontay said the first time, like where he says like I'm gonna like entrust you with more, because for me, it's just rewarding to know that I did well enough for something to where someone's like, okay, I'm gonna give you more. Just kind of being able to kind of like not promote, but just kind of advance and just being content with whatever it is. Because we know that means that you're obviously doing something right. He's not gonna give someone.
Watch this.
Your turn. But yeah, so just kind of knowing that like, I'm doing something right to where he's feeling or he can trust me to do more.
This had nothing to do with the other question, but I guess I kind of put two and two together, and I feel like all of the servants start off at that one, because he keeps saying that I will trust you more. So I feel like even the person who got five, I feel like he started off with one, and he came with two, and he trusted him more, so he gave him five.
Nathan agrees with you.
I think Nathan is hangry.
Right? Anybody else? It was like, in mine, it says, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And, I think about, to me, enter into the joy of my master. I think about, being outside, it's pouring down rain, you're cold. And I think about somebody, come on in, get warm. And I think about, everything that we're leaving behind, disappointment, frustration, sin, breaking hearts, death, and we're coming into his joy, a joy that none of us have ever experienced, in all honesty, because none of us have gone to heaven. We've been joyful because of the Lord. This is a joy that none of us can truly fathom. And so to be in that joy, not because of the works that I did, but kind of like Nita said, just knowing that, as we know, I love that song, he knows my name. And that just ministers to me every single time, because it amazes me that the creator of all things, and he really doesn't even consider us servants. You know what I'm saying? He considers us his friend. That's what Jesus said. Yes, the parable is about a servant, but and that's how we should serve, as if we are slaves to God. But in the end, his love and his joy is going to be so overwhelming that I'm so excited about that. I'm not afraid to die. Don't want to die, but just because I enjoy being with you guys and, with my family, but at the same time, I'm not afraid to, because I know that this is it. I'm going to enter into the joy of the Lord. Absent from the body is present with the Lord. So, I'm excited about that. I'm not fearful of his second coming. And so there's some things I'd like to do. Of course there are, but in the end, I don't want any of my selfish ambitions to keep him from coming, because I'd much rather him come and then us to be in that joy like never known before. So, just coming into the Master's joy, I just think about it, I can't help but smile, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm just like, God, it's got to be incredible. We're going to be walking on the very thing that we consider a high commodity here. We're going to be walking on gold. That's the pavement in heaven. So it's like, man, there's got to be something else. That's just crazy. Anybody else?
That's the only issue.
Well, it's 7:59, so we're good. Anybody want to add anything before we close up? Okay.
Right.
You can do that.
Yeah, we
next
did
week.
forget about that. That's true.
All right, well, nothing else.